most people tend to want the confidence at the commitment level, right? They want all the questions answered. They want to be guaranteed it's going to be successful, right? This is all going to work out, and they get paralyzed. And that's why the vast majority of people, I mean, the vast majority, never move beyond calling and commitment.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Couplepreneur Life podcast. On this episode, we have Pete Wilson joining us. Tell us about Pete.
Well, I love Pete. Pete's a cool dude. Mm-hmm. And in fact, he's going to be a speaker at Couplepreneur Con.
Yes.
But we have him on the podcast here. He's going to be dropping lots of nuggets of gold here. But I want to read from his bio here.
Sure.
And from Couplepreneur Con, because he's done so much, but this gets to the point. And you know how I tend to ramble, all right? But Pete, he's a speaker, all right, certified life coach. Now, it doesn't say, he coaches some of the top athletes.
Yes, he does.
In the NFL and college sports, and has some stars and some big names or whatever. I mean, so he deals with some big, he coaches some pretty big people.
High performing people.
High performing people, right, and business owners. He's a best-selling author. But Pete and his wife already started Good Vibes Management, which partners celebrities. All right, there's a celebrity touch there, with corporate brands and nonprofits to pull off inspiring, press-grabbing projects while giving a renewed purpose to the celebrities' platform. All right, so he works with a lot of celebrities. His husband and wife duo, Pete and Jordan, also host the Good Talk podcast. Good stuff there. You're going to want to check that out. Where they inspire people to become healthier, happier, and more purpose-driven versions of themselves.
Love it.
All right.
Okay, so if we're going to bring Pete on. So welcome, Pete Wilson, to the Couplepreneur Life podcast.
All right, as promised, we have Pete Wilson with us. All right. Pete, so glad you're on the podcast here. I've been so excited knowing that you were going to be on the podcast, and finally it's here. And again, thank you so much for taking your time to be on the podcast.
Oh, it's all my honor and pleasure. I'm really excited to have this time with you guys.
Well, I appreciate that. I got to gush over him a little bit here. Because when I first met you, Pete, we met at an event in Nashville with a group that we're kind of both involved around. In fact, can I say this? Our mentors were there at this event. All right. In fact, they were holding the event. Well, Pete, you're the mentor to our mentors.
Yeah.
Okay? Yes.
But we didn't know that.
So we're related somehow.
So yeah, it's kind of in the family here.
We're connected. We're connected.
Yes. And so I didn't know that at the time, but when we met, you were just so open and friendly and just such a cool dude. And I said, I gotta get to know that guy. And then lo and behold, here we are here, and you're on the podcast. And in fact, you're going to be speaking at Couplepreneur Con.
Yes.
And
I cannot wait.
And I can't believe we snagged him.
I know.
Right? We got one over on him, didn't we?
That's right.
All right. So I love it. So glad you're here, man.
Yes.
All
absolutely.
right.
So Pete, you are a life coach, and a life coach to a lot of people, right? Some very influential people. And you like to talk about the 5 C's, right?
Yeah.
All right. So
I did. And this is a tool that I use, guys, with individuals, couples, whenever they're thinking about launching a new venture, or maybe they've launched a new venture of some sort. And you know what? It doesn't have to be a business you're launching. Maybe for some of your listeners today, here we are at the beginning of the year. A lot of people have set goals, New Year's resolutions. And so anytime you're going into something new in life, whether it's a new workout schedule, a new job, a new marriage, there's going to be some hiccups along the way. And I kind of created these 5 C's as a tool to help individuals kind of understand where they are in the process, because it's so easy to get lost, right? Especially when you're doing something new, you got things coming at you from every direction. So it's helpful sometimes to know, okay, here's where I'm at in this process, and it just creates some normalcy. So let me give you the 5 C's, and then we'll walk through them. Okay?
Sure, you got it. Go ahead.
It actually started as 4 C's. And then my wife corrected me. She said, "You're missing one."
Oh.
And as wives will do, right?
Yes. And I've learned to listen.
Yes.
I've learned to listen to her. Yes.
Right.
So it's now the 5 C's, not the 4 C's. But the one that she added is actually the first C, and it's calling. So this idea of calling, for everybody, like you guys, let's use you guys as an example. I'll kind of coach you as we go. just
Ooh,
live on this
okay, we get.
podcast.
Okay.
But the whole couplepreneur idea and concept at some point started as a calling, right? It was an idea. It was there's something missing, and I think we could help like fill that void. Do you guys remember the moment, the season where the idea came to you?
Absolutely, we
Absolutely.
do. And one of our mentors, Roy Vaden, says one of his famous quotes is, "You are powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were." Right, and it's
That's right.
such a great quote. So we can look back at the beginning of our marriage, about year 3, where we went through a lot of struggles and all that, right? And we were separated. We've talked about that in the podcast before. So coming through that, and now at year almost 30 of marriage, we've got a great marriage, but it was hard work. So now we can look back and say, okay, all that struggle that we went through back at year 3, and all the arguments and all that was for this purpose. And actually, we, as far as a calling, we've known for a while that this is something that we were supposed to do as Christians. We believe that God does put a calling on your life, and we have.
Well, I'll butt in here
Yeah.
with my wife. We have, those people know that we come from the plumbing industry, and so we had our plumbing company, a brick and mortar company, and out doing our thing. And Laura got this a vision or a word from God that we were going to speak to married couples one day.
And it didn't make any
It
sense.
made
This
no,
was years
ago. It made no sense. It's
Right.
like, what? We ain't speaking to nobody. We're building a plumbing business. We're building a plumbing empire and doing that kind of stuff. And lo and behold, years later, after we sold our plumbing business, we got asked to. We were being asked, well, how'd you go from where you were to where you wound up? Which got us into coaching plumbing companies, mom and pop shops, and teaching them the business of plumbing. And through that, we have an online, we still do. We still have, it's the $1 Million Plumber. We have an online education platform, and there's coaching. And even though we backed out of the coaching, we now have coaches, but we coached people, for some years.
Husbands and wives.
Well, we discovered that the majority, I would almost say the majority of the time, certainly half the time, we were doing marriage counseling.
Yes.
Because this idea of living, of just working together, figuring that out, and the friction there, and then raising the kids, and friends and family and life and all that kind of stuff, and how do you handle all that? So we were spending a lot of time discussing those kinds of things. Thus it hit us that there just isn't anything out there. There's marriage counseling out there and coaching, there's marriage or there's business coaching out there, but there's nothing that marries the two. And thus
I love it.
Couplepreneur life was born.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how it happens, right? And so, to your point, sometimes you carry the calling, you carry the dream, you carry the idea for long periods of time, before it actually becomes a result. But at some point, for it to move from a calling to actually something that you're living out, you're executing on, the second C comes into play. And the second C is commitment, right? At some point, you guys had to say, okay, this is our goal. This is what we're going to do. So it went from a calling, an idea, a dream that's way up here, right? And it became a decision you guys made. We're leaning into this. And that commitment stage is a key one, because it's essentially you're establishing a goal. I'm big on goals. It's a big part of what I do as a life coach. And goals, I believe, are the fastest way to get from where you are today to where you want to be.
Yes.
And so that commitment that, I want a different future. I want to see this idea come to fruition. I want to write a book. I want to launch a new business. I want to start a new practice, whatever it is. And the problem with the commitment stage is most people want to jump to stages 4 and 5. All right. So let me give you, I don't think I gave all 5 of the C's yet, but the 5 C's are calling, then you have commitment, then you have courage, then you have competency, then you have confidence, right? The key here is confidence is actually the last stage. Most people tend to want the confidence at the commitment level, right? They want all the questions answered. They want to be guaranteed it's going to be successful, right? This is all going to work out, and they get paralyzed. And that's why the vast majority of people, the vast majority, never move beyond calling and commitment. They're trying to jump too far ahead. So along with this commitment to this has to be this commitment to the unknown, to the uncomfortable. You guys know this as entrepreneurs. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
That's right. That sounds familiar.
Wow, that's
Right?
something that we tell our clients probably on the first session. Get ready.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. You have to be okay. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And somewhere along the way, that happened for you guys. You went from this calling that maybe you lived with for years to, okay, this is the time. We're going to make a commitment. We don't have this all figured out. We don't have the back end created. We don't have speakers for our conference. We don't have people to attend the conference. Like, you got nothing.
Right.
But you had your commitment. You had this commitment that was backed by a calling, and you're like, we're going to do this. And you set your goal, even though you didn't have the other stages, right? You didn't have the competency, you didn't have the confidence, but you moved forward anyway. And so congrats to you guys, right?
Well, we remember it was this past summer we decided to do the conference, and we wrote the check to get the facility for the conference, which is a pretty decent sized check. And you're right on. We didn't have speaker one. we didn't even know what we were going to say, and certainly didn't have any the following in this area to put on the conference.
Right.
But as we know, you're right on. As entrepreneurs and couplepreneurs, we learn that you got to jump in.
Right.
You got to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yep. And you guys did it. And that's the interesting thing that I've noticed. With most high achievers, this whole process is something they've been through so many times. They don't even identify. They don't necessarily say, here are all the stages. They have found a way to just comfortably master this process by going through it over and over and over again. And that's why you guys at this stage in your life probably move through these stages faster than the young couple who's just now starting and they're standing on the brink of like something new. So that's why you guys you're the example and you're the invitation, right? You're the example because you've done it. Now you're inviting all of us in to experience what you've learned. You're the example and the invitation, and it's a beautiful thing. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And it is a confidence thing because in the beginning, when we started our very first business, we were clueless. And we weren't comfortable being uncomfortable, right? So it took a little while, but now we've had some road underneath us. We've been through a lot of things, and we do get to confidence, I think, fairly quickly. Doesn't mean we're always confident, but
you're right on with the stage there. But we were committed to it. We stayed committed. And those businesses that we work with that don't quite make it, they lose, in this, the confidence doesn't come till, quite frankly, confidence doesn't come until you fail a few times.
That's right.
And whether you completely failed with the business, not necessarily that, but just failed within certain operations, along the way. But you got to be committed and stick with it. So
that's right.
Right on, Pete.
Yep. Yeah. Most people want that confidence on the front end. But what I tell people all the time is confidence is not a requirement. It's a result, right? It's not something you're going to get on the front end. It's something that comes on the back end. And so we have to remember that.
Yeah, we're going to hack that.
That's right.
Okay.
It's yours.
That's
It's yours.
Wilson.
I'm sure I stole it from somebody along the way.
Okay.
But so you have the calling, then you have the commitment, right? And then very quickly, you have to move into that third stage, which is courage. And in my opinion, this is the most difficult of the 5 stages. And it also often lasts a long time that you have to have this courage. And, it's like, sometimes I jokingly define courage or the difference between courage and fear. Fear is wetting your pants. Yeah. Courage is doing whatever you have to do with wet pants. Like you never lose completely the fear. It's just not allowing fear to be the driver in the front seat.
Right.
You do it anyway.
I love that, Pete. I can't help it. You're right on that. I talk, look, even though we speak with couples, I can relate to the guys because I'm a guy, right? And so, and I'm also a movie buff. I love movies. We love movies together. The movie, Gladiator. And so I use this as an example. And it's that the first fight scene, the first gladiator scene where they're going in the ring and they're slaves really. And so you have, he's a, hardened veteran, war, battle veteran, and then you had another slave that was, probably the harpist or something, musician,
Yeah.
and wasn't a fighter, and they'll get ready to go in the ring. Well, and the guy the harpist is standing right in front of him, and he's literally, peeing his loincloth, he's so afraid. And, Russell Crowe's character is nervous too. Everyone's nervous. The point I'm trying to make, everyone's scared, but it's being able to, handle it, holding that courage to be able to do whatever it takes to move forward.
That's right. Yeah, I believe that every human being inside of them has both courage and fear.
Yes.
The difference between high achievers and those who just never seem to reach their full potential is that they always act on and respond to the fear versus acting and responding to the courage that's inside of them. Courage is like a muscle, right? And the more you lean into it, the more it develops and grows and allows you to do things far beyond what you could normally do. But you got to work that muscle out. I know you guys are workout buffs, so you know how this works. Yeah. If you don't use it, you lose it.
You lose it. Right on.
Yep. So that courage phase, it's key, because this is what's allowing you to continue to move forward with your plans before you have developed the competency or the confidence.
Yes.
Right.
And again, it's just a key season. But hopefully you keep the courage, you keep moving forward, and eventually you get to what we call competency or capability. And the competency is, in every endeavor, in every calling you chase in life, there's some kind of competency that eventually probably needs to be mastered if you're going to be fully successful. But again, what you have to remember is you're not going to be confident in the beginning. So that's why you have to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's going to take some time. When I think about Couplepreneur, because this is still a new venture for you guys, even though you've been through so many of these type startups before.
Right.
You probably still don't feel like you have complete competency. You probably don't feel like you know exactly what you're doing.
Well,
correct?
Yeah. Definitely. Right on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's normal, right?
Okay.
But what's going to happen because of your courage, you're going to continue to develop the competencies, and the things that you guys are doing right now that scare you to death are going to become a norm. It's going to be something that one day you wake up and you're like, we're really good at this. We fought through this. We know what we're doing. And next year's conference, I'm gonna go ahead and call it. We haven't even gotten to this year's conference, but next year's conference, it's gonna have a whole different feeling to you guys, because you're gonna have some competencies then that you don't have now.
I like that.
Yes.
Speak that over us for sure.
Yep, there you go.
But we know that from experience as well. And so you're
right
on. You're right on. We can be transparent, going in, even though we have all this life experience and business experience, and we've done similar things to this, with retreats and events, but nothing quite like this. So it's amazing, even at our age and our life experience, we still have that there's still that fear there. And you still got to have the courage to push through, and do the things necessary to be able to move forward. And you're right. Even though we know we figured things out before, we certainly can figure it out again. But definitely.
What's the worst that can happen?
That's
right?
the worst, right?
We say that an awful lot anymore.
Yeah.
So what
can
happen?
And
right?
there's a reason that we say that idea of what's the worst that could happen, and it's because our brains are actually wired for survival. Their most primary function is to keep us alive. And so our brains tend to focus on anything that's threatening, anything that's negative, anything that's unknown, right? Because those things could potentially hold danger in them. So our brains tend to overly fixate on those things, and it's very normal. But that's where courage comes into play, is that you're pushing back against the limiting beliefs and the stories that you're telling yourself along the way. And if you can fight through that, you get to stage 5, which is confidence, right? But you have to understand that commitment is what leads to courage. Courage is what leads to competency. And then competency is what eventually will lead to the confidence. But the confidence, as I stated before, it's not a prerequisite. It is a result. It's what comes at the end. If you're, as long as you're waiting for that confidence before you launch, before you get started, it's over. You're never going to get started.
Oh, it's so true.
Yeah.
And Pete, you coach a lot of high performing people, right? Where do you find that most of them, where do they get tripped up the most? Even some that have been really successful, and doing a new calling or a new venture or something. Where do you find that those high achievers kind of stumble?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's only according to science, about a 0.1% difference in the genetic makeup of all human beings, which means that the tiniest shifts, right, in the way that we do our work, the tiniest shifts in the way that we think are what really elevate the highest of achievers and performers. And so a lot of the people I work with, from NFL quarterbacks to CEOs of very large companies to celebrities, they've all had, by the time I'm working with them, some kind of level of pretty high success, right?
Right.
But what's interesting to me is, even though they've had major achievements, they've won all the awards you can imagine winning, from the Heisman to Oscars, whatever's next seems just as daunting as this first step that they were taking at the very beginning of their career. It feels just as big. It feels just as weighty. In other words, they can't really rest on the success of their past. And they know that. They know that this is something new. This is something different. That becomes very frustrating for high achievers because they have confidence in a whole lot of areas of their life. They know how to throw the football. They know how to sing. They know how to perform. But whatever it is that's next is requiring them to go all the way back to step one, right? They got this calling, and now they've got to develop, right, the courage to kind of step into that again. They have to make that commitment again. And it seems just as scary as the very first step that they took. And so I would say it's the confidence thing. They think because they've accomplished so much in their past that they should have confidence with this new venture. But the reality is, as a human being, you're going to have to walk through these 5 steps every time you're doing something new.
So as you're coaching these high achievers and people that have had tremendous success and they get stuck, what's one of the things that you kind of help get them unstuck or kind of shake them loose and remind them?
Yeah, I think one of the first places I usually go is limiting beliefs, because the reality is, and this is some of what I want to talk about at the conference coming up, is I'm a firm believer that your life is moving in the direction of your most powerful thoughts. The book of Proverbs in the Bible talks about this idea that, as a man thinks in his heart, so he is.
That's right.
Cognitive behavioral psychology, science confirms the same thing. And anytime like the Bible and modern science agree, I'm like, we better pay attention to that, right? And so, it's true. Your life is moving in the direction of your most powerful thoughts. And so generally speaking, there's some limiting beliefs that are there in your life that have to be addressed. And once we replace those limiting beliefs, and they have to be replaced, you can't just get rid of a limiting belief. The law of replacement says you can't replace something with nothing. So we have to replace that with a more true belief. Once that is replaced, I have found that people can move quicker from the calling stage to that commitment stage. But when they're stuck in between calling and commitment, it's almost always some kind of limiting belief. It's a story that they've been telling themselves, and they've been telling themselves this story for so long that they actually believe it's true. And the reality is, our mind and our thoughts can be extremely deceiving in lots of different areas. And so until you get control over that, you're going to struggle, like gracefully moving through these 5 stages and launching something new.
It's like The Battlefield of the Mind, old book by Joyce Meyer. I don't know if you know
Yep.
that book, right?
I did.
Where she talks about that. The mind really is a battlefield, and just because a thought comes into your head doesn't necessarily mean it's from you, right? That
right.
It could be the enemy of your soul that's speaking lies to you. And so her thing was exactly what you said. Don't you can't just say, okay, I'm not going to think that anymore. Or, that's a lie. That's a lie. That's a lie. You do have to replace it with something that's the exact opposite. right? So if
Yep.
you've got negative thoughts coming in, you replace it with something positive. We use scripture. You know, if the enemy comes and lies to me about something, I know I'm the daughter of a king. That's a
Yep.
lie
Right.
from the enemy. So you do replace that. So that's certainly powerful. Mhm.
You know, and
Yeah.
we experienced that with deciding to commit to, you know, the couplepreneur life. You know, we're at an age, you know, we're 60, and so we kind of look at ourselves as being old, even though we're not old.
60 is the new 30.
60 is the
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we've had success, we have failures, we've had success, and we feel very confident in the things that we have done. So this idea of starting something new, there's no guarantee that it can be successful. But then also we had this, and we had to discuss this. And we even asked our coaches, are we too old? Do we have anything to offer? We're old, we don't have anything to offer to these young couples. You know, that was
Yep.
truly our belief.
Right.
And then
Yeah,
really
it's a
we had to say,
limiting
well, no,
belief.
well, we have experience and we have success and we've had failures that we can keep people from, and we've lived the life. And so we had to replace it with, we do have something to offer, and here's what it is. You know?
Yep. Yeah, and that's a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier, where your brain's primary function is safety. And so launching something new seems like, again, there's unknowns, right? And so your brain, the first thing, generally speaking, that's going to pop into your mind is all the reasons why you can't do this. I'm too old. I'm too young. I don't have the resources. I don't have the education. Like it'll spin off all those things. Until you learn to take control of those thoughts, they're going to dominate your life. And you're going to sit around wondering, why is my marriage mediocre, even though my wife is great? Why is my business like hitting a ceiling on the amount of income we can produce, even though we're working harder than we did last year? Well, more than likely, it's a limiting belief that's lodged itself into your life. And without even realizing it, you're pursuing that instead of what it is you really want to pursue with your life.
Oh, that's so good, Pete.
I love it.
Love it. Okay, we're going to kind of continue this conversation in the members area of Club Couplepreneur. But Pete, if someone wants to find more about you, I know you've got a book out. Is it a couple books that you've got, right? Or how
I
many
do.
books?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I wrote 4 books, but
okay.
that was a while ago.
Okay. If someone wants to learn more about you, where would they go? And we'll make sure that we have the links. But go ahead and give us.
Yeah. Probably the 2 places that are easiest is my website. It's petewilson.co. I couldn't afford the M on the back of co, so it's just petewilson.co. And the other place is probably Instagram. It's just the letter P Wilson. So it's at P Wilson. That's how you can get a hold of me on Instagram.
Perfect. All right. Well, go out and give him a follow.
And do this. I think, this guy's a cool dude, and a lot of great information here. And so, yeah, check him out, follow him, and learn and grow.
Yeah, so we're going to go to the club area, and I want to talk about what happens when only one spouse feels the calling, the commitment, the courage, competency, and the confidence. We'll talk about that in the club area.
All right.
All right.
Great.
And so we'll see the club members over in the club area, and others. Hey, it was great having you here, and we look forward to seeing you next time.